Howdy, folks. Welcome to part 5 of A Beginner's Guide to Public Speaking with me, Jack McCurdy, and Peter Chittum. We have covered everything that you need to do to prepare. So now you are suitably prepared. It all comes down to delivering the presentation. The part that strikes fear into even the most seasoned speakers is the 10 minutes before you go on stage. So I think there's some really useful things that Peter and I have ruminated on that really help settle those nerves first and foremost, and then some things to think about as you are delivering your talk, which will make you successful. Control what you can is one of the messages that we have in the doc, Peter, and there's a number of things that you can do in that 10 minutes before your talk that will leave people suitably prepared and set them up for success even before they set up on the stage. So I thought it made sense to cover a few of those before we even get into actually delivering the thing.
Yeah, and this is really about just doing some common sense things that if you're focused on I have to give a talk, could just really easily sort of like fly out of your mind. It's basically, the core of it is just, don't forget you're a human. It's a way to think about it. So things like go to the room early, right? Have a look at it, familiarize yourself with it. Like, this is where you're going to be, and familiarity breeds comfort, right? So get into the room or like check out the stage. If there's a dead space, if you have an opportunity, go ahead and plug in your laptop. If you're not the first talk, obviously, if you're the very first talk, then get there like literally the moment the conference, you should be able to get there before the conference opens so you can actually plug it in and just make sure that it works. Or, usually the conference is going to open and then there's going to be some time before the talk. But, if you're that first talk, beeline to your stage, get yourself plugged in and make sure everything's working ASAP. And that way you just don't have to worry about that technical stuff. While you're plugged in, go through a few slides, go through your demo, stop in certain key points and walk to the back of the room. Make sure your font size is good. Make sure there aren't weird light effects. There was, I spoke at Forcelandia one year and I had everything in dark mode. And I realized that having things in dark mode, the way the lighting was coming into this one room, like you couldn't make out what was on the screen. And so I actually went and switched everything so that it was in light mode. But I only knew that because I'd plugged in early and I'd looked at it and I realized, oh, that's really bad. People are going to struggle to see what I'm showing them if I don't do that. Mm-hmm. Bring water. Now, a lot of conferences supply water, but you shouldn't count on it.
I've been to more conferences where there has not been water on the stage than there has been water on the stage. So
yeah,
definitely take your own.
Yeah, bring your own. Make sure you have a way to lubricate your voice as you're there. Like Jack said, now he said 10 minutes before, but I would say arrive like 30 minutes before your talk. Watch the previous one. And that actually gives you an opportunity, no matter what the topic is, to learn about the room. Like, how are they interacting with it? Are they struggling with something? You can get yourself prepared for that. Right before you go to the room, use the toilet. I mean, it seems like such a basic thing. You don't want to be
jumping around on stage needing to pee. Come on.
I mean, like the last thing you want to be doing when you're trying to deliver this talk that you're, trying to communicate with, hopefully you feel passionate about, is think about, having to take care of personal business. Like, that's just not where you need to be. And then, lastly, most computers have a do not disturb feature. Just turn that on.
And on your phone.
And on your phone, yeah. Just make sure you won't be interrupted. Although I have to say, I did once manage to get about a 350 person conference room at Dreamforce to sing my wife happy birthday. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was at Dreamforce for her birthday, and so like the best thing I could do was to get 300 random strangers to sing her happy birthday. So there you go. So in that case, she wasn't disturbing me. I was just disturbing her. So
nothing says I love you like 300 strangers singing to you, right? yeah. Super solid advice. I think one of those things that I do as well, for aside from all of this preparation and those great steps that you've outlined, is to allow myself some space just to breathe and meditate before my talk. Just find some silence somewhere just to sit and try and clear my head. And then the very next thing that you do is your talk.
Yeah.
Clear your head, and then the next thing you're focused on is your talk. I've been in conferences where I've been engaged in multiple conversations, and I've gone, damn it, my talk's in 5 minutes, and I have to context switch back to presenter mode, or being able to deliver the presentation. And that often has led me to feeling a little bit rushed or not quite where I need to be. So taking that time to meditate and focus and clear my head before focusing solely on the presentation, I find really helpful.
And I think that's almost a very personal one, because I could see, like, for some people, maybe staying engaged in something else could sort of keep their mind off of it. So here, Jack and I are two people sharing like two opinions about this. And, you may find something works different for you, which is like totally legit. The most important thing is learning how you do this. So, what we're giving you is some tips that we've found useful. Start with those and, adjust as you need to. So if you need to go and like be social for the hour before so that, you can kind of keep your mind off of worrying about it, that's fine. If staring at your slides is going to help you, that's fine too. Or if some quiet time is going to help you, do that. Like, figure out what works for you and can stick with that.
Yeah, for sure. So we're prepared. We're on stage. It's go time. Nerves are normal, right? And they are especially going to be normal for that first talk. Even getting those first few words out on your first engagement is going to be difficult. They're normal. Everyone gets them, still gets that. I still get them to some degree. The goal isn't to get rid of them or eliminate them. It's to accept that they exist and work with them. I've been very fortunate to have seen a number of first-time speakers, and many of them will make a joke about it or acknowledge the fact that they are nervous to the audience. It's my first time. The audience almost always is on your side. They're there to work with you, not against you. They're there to learn from you, and keeping that in mind and being honest and truthful about where you're at, then that's fine. And that's not that you need to be careful with that, because if you're not nervous, if you're a supremely confident person anyway, and you go, "Oh, it's my first talk, I'm really nervous," like people are going to call BS on that straight away when you deliver like a fantastic talk. So you talked about remembering that you're human, Peter, and embracing that humanness is really important and imperative to success.
Yeah, and I I really like to think about people want to connect with other people, right?
Yeah.
And so you being genuinely anything, is probably okay. If it's getting you in the direction of delivering your talk. And if it is your first talk, I agree. Like there's nothing wrong with just owning that. And, everybody's going to understand that, every skill takes practice to become amazing at. So I think that's super key. I like the suggestion of like starting with confidence. And one of the things that I like to do, because I'll be there, standing in front of the audience, and especially if I've got a little bit of a tight, like I know I'm trying to squeeze in a lot for my time frame, I think it's really good to try and get to know your audience and, go back to that work that you did. Like, who's the person who's supposed to be listening to that talk, right? Find out who's in the room, start asking about who they are, like why they came, and doing that before your actual time is okay. Right? It's actually a great way to get back a little bit of time if you're a little concerned with fitting within your time. 3 minutes before, start basically kind of do some icebreakers. And so who's in the room? There's the talk that I give on AI models. I mean, that's really a talk that anybody can come and listen to. You don't have to be a developer or admin or architect, or, it's really designed for anybody who works in technology who just wants to learn some basic things about AI models. So I like to find out who's there, like how many admins are here, how many developers, architects, what's your experience with machine learning, very experienced machine learning, you understand what machine learning is, or no experience with machine learning. And it gives you an audience or it gives you a moment to interact with and get to know your audience, and for you to be a bit human with them, and for you to see them in their humanity too. And that can also help get you over that sort of nerve hump. If you've started to interact with your audience already in a personal way, it's going to make things a lot easier.
Yeah, it's breaking down a virtual wall that you kind of put up for yourself. I find that you kind of put an artificial barrier between you and the audience.
Right.
Those first couple of times, it's just like, there's a barrier here and I need to jump over that barrier. The sooner you can break that mental barrier down, the better that you're going to feel about the whole thing. And if you can do that before you even start talking and delivering your content, then your quid's in, right? So,
100%.
Like talking of, assuming that you are well prepared and you've followed Jack and Peter's guide to preparing a great presentation, things in your presentation, like we talked about, like being human, like don't aim for perfection. Say you have had a script prepared and you've worked in that manner, or you've just got your bullet point notes and your story. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for that connection that we've talked about and engaging with that audience. Smile, pause, eye contact, just look around the room. I find myself, when I'm on stage, I like to walk around on stage. That, if you can, I find that's a really good way to get out some of the nervous energy as well, that you might have. I find that walking does that for me. So many conferences will have a lectern. Unless you're live demoing, I don't think you should be stood behind that lectern just talking and pressing
or
next.
If that's where the microphone is sometimes, or if, like that.
Yeah, if that's where the microphone is, that does present a challenge. You're right, but I hope most conferences either have a handheld mic or a lapel mic that you clip. I find that can be really helpful.
I agree. I like to do a bit of walking about, and I think it allows you to see different parts of your audience better and to connect with them, especially like in the Dreamforce or TDX stages. They're quite wide, and so being able to kind of move about in different places. The thing that, and this is hard to practice because your practice space is probably not going to look like your presentation space, but something to bear in mind. I was at this conference last week, and there was a first-time speaker, and they really knew their stuff, but they had a sort of physical, repetitive way of how they would sort of rock, and it was like the same thing like over and over, and I actually found it very distracting. And so this is something that if you can build an awareness of your body like as you're presenting, you can sort of kind of fall out of the habit of what I would call sort of physical tics, if that makes sense. And we all have them. I'm sure I have some I'm not even aware of, but maybe they just don't bug anybody, or maybe people have been too polite to tell me. But
I haven't noticed, for the record.
Well, that's good. Oh, my goodness. but like those kind of things can also be distracting to your audience. And so, that if you can kind of settle into who would you be if you were just like in your kitchen making Sunday morning breakfast and talking about this, right? Like, something that would be a very natural thing for you to do, but you're giving this talk. Because if you can kind of settle into your body like that, then it, our minds can be fooled by how we behave physically. And so I think that can also bring a more natural feel to a talk, if that makes sense.
I agree. Something about settling in, and we talked about preparing and making sure that you're well timed and all that good stuff. Try not to rush. When you're nervous, it's easy to rush. Try and keep that pacing like you've had in that comfortable kitchen environment that Peter's just mentioned, and own the silence in the places that you need to take breaks and pause for breath and pause for a little bit of thought. One of the things that I've come to realize is when I pause, there is a natural need to. There's a natural human. This comes back to the sales experience that I was talking about in the first part of this video series. We have an innate need to want to fill silence, so we start to rush things out and communicate. So even a 1 second pause that you have is going to feel like an absolute eternity in your head. Or stop it. You need a sip of water. It's okay to stop talking and take a sip of water, which might take 5 seconds. That will feel like 5 minutes in your head, but that's okay. And the more that you can embrace the pauses and the silence, it not only is helpful for you to carry on gathering and reflecting on your thoughts or how the talk is going, it also gives the audience space to breathe and absorb things that you might have said. Say if you've dropped an absolute truth bomb, let it hang there. Let it sit there for 5 seconds before moving on to the next point. Give the audience time to hear what you've said. Is one of those top tips, and something that I remind myself of every time I step on stage.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. And I think about an analogy to let's say a piece of music. There are different dynamics, there's different tempo. If you think about how like a really good like electronic music will then all of a sudden have like a breakout, or breakdown, I forget what it I'm not super versed in that, but like there are moments that you want to bring attention to, and there are natural things that you can do either with your voice or with silence. You can build it into your presentation to support it as well. And I think building some places and times where you can interact with your audience can be also a really effective way to bring your audience in. Absolutely. And have surprises. Build that into your presentation too. I already mentioned once this the memory illusion book, and one of the things that helps people remember is a certain good level of cortisol in our blood. Like those two things, there's a correlation between can you get people stimulated, too little stimulation, and they don't remember anything, too much stimulation, and you also start to forget things because you go into fight or flight. But the right amount of stimulation makes for the most memorable thing for an audience, right? So the most likely that you'll get your audience to remember something is if there's something that gets them a bit stimulated, whether that's a joke or a surprise or kind of something unexpected that they didn't that they wouldn't have thought was there. So all of those things can some of that maybe goes into the planning the presentation, but some of it can also be just how you bring yourself to the presentation. I used to coach trainers for the training and certification program. So these were people who they would work for system integrators or training partners, or they were subcontractor trainers, and we had to certify them to be, allowed to teach the Salesforce training. And one of the best, and I didn't actually come up with this idea. This other trainer named Amy Harbin came up with it, but I use it all the time because oftentimes when you get somebody who's very technical, they don't necessarily have the experience of going and sharing something or teaching something. And what I would say to people is, what is it about you that your family, your friends, and your loved ones love about spending time with you? We all have some aspect of our personality that people are attracted to, that people are interested in, that makes people want more of our time. Find out what that is and go there during your talk. Bring more of that to your talk. Again, as we've said several times in this series, you are the thing that's different about this thing that you're sharing about, you being up there. And so the more of you that you can bring into that presentation, the more engaging it's going to be for everybody. And the more you're going to get that cortisol rise in people that they'll remember what that talk was about.
Absolutely. It's such great sound advice for being comfortable in your own skin and helping with that engagement. I think the only last thing that I will say about delivering a great presentation and something to be mindful of, if something goes off script, you are the only person that has known it's gone off script too. So take a breath and carry on. It might not be what you intended to say at that point, but the only person that knows that is you. There's a good chance that if you're well prepared, what you've said has been relevant and resonant anyway. It might not be the quite what you planned, but it's out there now, and you're the only one that knows that you've made a mistake, so to speak. I'm going to use the inverted commas here. A mistake. You're the only person that knows that. Keep calm, carry on, as that British saying goes.
Yep, definitely.
Cool. Hopefully that makes you a little bit more comfortable and giving you some confidence to deliver a great presentation.